And I'm an addict. You know, the committee asked me to come and share. I was on the way to this workshop to hear a message. And I got, I said, you want me to chair a workshop? He said, no, you sharing. And I said, okay. Even though ISNAC is in my city, I haven't really been too much a part of the convention, but I came down here this morning and I said before I left home that if anything they asked me to do, if they needed something done, I'd be willing. And so the topic for this workshop is our secrets. And like I said, I was coming to the workshop to hear a message. And so I'm just going to share to the best of my ability and ask that the God that I serve create a clear NA message in me. I remember coming into the fellowship this last time and, and thinking that I had some secrets. But I know that last time when I was out there using, everybody knew what I was doing. So I came in this time with some willingness, some open-mindedness, and I continue to work on that honesty on a daily basis. And even though I've been around here for a few years, I had practiced some behaviors, that I wasn't quite ready to let go, and but as I continue to stay here, and continue to work on me, continue to work with my sponsor, some of those, I was able to start freeing myself from some of those old behaviors. And literature talks about we only as sick as our secrets. Well, I've been able to get a sponsor. I've had the same sponsor since I've been around, and we tend not to have any secrets. It's like I need to always be able to share with one human being the exact nature of what's really going on. Last weekend there was a convention in Toledo, and I went over there and and I was and had a good time, and I spent a lot of time in the marathon room. I only went over there on a Saturday, and it seemed like it was always, it wasn't like a lot of people in the marathon room, but there was always one or two addicts in there, and and then they were strangers to me. So I freed myself. I got to the exact nature of what was, of the secrets that I was holding on to. I found that since I've been around, one of my biggest areas where I fall short is that area of personal relationships. Literature talks about how that unrealistic expectation can cause us pain, especially in that area of relationships. I have found that I have never been able to stay in a healthy relationship for any period of time. Because it always started out with me people pleasing. And like I heard it shared last weekend that usually what happened is the real me ends up showing up. When the real me show up, those relationships tend to end. Because I always, treated relationships like I always treated, always with, if I do this for you, then you do this for me. And I tended to treat all women in that way. And because in my active addiction, the drug was the cure-all and the end-all. Everything that I wanted to get, I used the drugs to get it. Now that I came into recovery, Now I had to become a productive member of society and become a human being again. Because in addiction, we're not human beings. I don't know what we are, but I don't know what I was, but all I know is it was all about me. And so I had to try to start working on relationships. But what I found myself doing was I was going to the meetings looking for victims and taking hostages. There was a meeting on our schedule that I had quit going to for a while, because every time I went to that, when I was going to that meeting, it was all about who was going to be the next victim. I had to quit going to that meeting, and I shared it with my sponsor. I said, "Well, I'm not going over here anymore for a while because I know that I have an ulterior motive for going to that meeting." So I had to start going to other meetings, and as I continue to come to meetings, work on me, I had to get rid of those secrets. And one of them that I've been carrying around for a long time is, we talk about how we living. I've had people ask me to sponsor them, and I have said yes, but it seems like I always attract the same people who like me. They don't want to work on nothing. We be sponsee in name, because, the truth of the matter is, I haven't really worked that many steps. Now, how can I really sponsor someone if I hadn't done the work that I need to do? I know that I've changed. I know that I've incorporated spiritual principles in my life. I know that I'm not the same person I was when I first came around, but I know that I'm not all that I could be, because I haven't done all that I should do, And as a matter of fact, me and my sponsor talked about this. He's worked a few more steps than I have, but, I said, we disconnected here. We just talked about that just the other week, that we both got to get reconnected. That I need to start working the steps, And I also need to work on that area of women, because even though I finally quit turning them corners and picking up them women, for that instant gratification, I'm going to tell you the exact reason why. The last time that I picked somebody up for instant gratification, and we got home, got to my house, and I have a remote control light and fan in my bedroom. Well, usually in the mornings I put the remote by the door so I could turn the light on when I get, going to the bedroom. Well, this time the remote was over by the bed. So it was dark in there, so I had to fumble around. When I finally turned the light on, this woman was standing there with a knife. She was a user addict. She was using that for her own protection. And then it dawned on me that I am not the predator here all the time, that I could be the victim. And that was the last time that I done that. Because, sometimes things happen for a reason. It was to let me know that, I could get hurt. Not only was I hurting other people, not only was I continuing to keep her in her sickness, it is also keeping me in my sickness. But at the same time, it's jails, institutions, and death. And it ain't always about the dope. For the newcomer, When I was a newcomer, it was about the dope. But now it's about my behaviors, my attitudes, and my actions. And, and I shared that with my sponsor, and then I shared it. I don't know if I shared that exact incident with my sponsor, but I usually, I probably did because it happened, over a year ago. See, I'm not talking about stuff I did early in recovery. I'm talking about stuff I do now. It's the stuff I do now that keeps me sick, And, I've been blessed to the point where I was able to retire from my job. I came into the fellowship with a job, barely. I had 25 years on my job when they fired me for the third time. But this time they were serious. We had a brand new personnel guy, and it was, I got fired. On that last run, that run we make before we come into recovery. And when I got fired, I wasn't using. I had been in my bedroom 4 days in that fetal position. In that state of depression. Where I just, that self-made prison, when we come to the end of the road and we don't know which way to turn. And the union has said, well, we think we can get you back in here anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But see, God had already worked it out. I was back working about 2 weeks, but here's the killer. In the period leading up to them giving me my job back, I was seeing this gal. I'm taking her back and forth to work, getting up in the mornings. I don't have a job right now. I've been fired. Taking her back and forth to work, picking up in the morning, then picking up when she get off work. About the middle of the first week, I brought her home from work. We walk in, and she go in the kitchen, and she come out with this plate. See, she wasn't the addict, because see, I wasn't with her the night before, but she had went to work that morning and left some dope on the plate. See, I know, but it talks about people, places, and things. So what happened? I used. In that second week, when they called me back to work, I had to pass a drug screen. That lie about, it'll go through your system in 3 days and you'll be all right. It didn't happen. I had a dirty drop. And I told the union guy, I said, yeah, I used. He said, well, when we get in here and talk to the personnel people, lie. So, I figured the union knew what they was going to do, So I done told the truth to the union's rep, but he tell me when we get in here, tell him you don't know how you got a dirty drop. So, we go in there and the guy said, well, you wasn't clean. You can't come back to work till you get clean. And I said, I don't know how that happened. And my man said, come on. And then that went around for a few months. And I said, yeah, I used. I said, I'm okay. I'm ready to take another drop. Because I had already worked 2 days. You know what I'm saying? And when the test came back, I was dirty. So I took the test again, and I was clean. And I've been clean ever since. But, see, that was at being around, being introduced to this program in 1987, here it is 1995, and I had no self-honesty in me. I had no willingness to do what was necessary to stay clean. Well, no, let me say, I had the willingness because I was beat down. Because I remember on that last run, I was crying out for help, but I couldn't stop. So the job said, okay, finally got a clean drop. I started back to work, and they said, this is what you need to do. You remember that movie Animal House? They put me on double secret probation. I had my own contract with the company, and they said, you need to go to 3 meetings a week. It was suggested I come to Narcotics Anonymous. You need to go to 3 meetings a week and bring those slips in here on Monday. Well, I said, okay. So I made my first meeting. It was Tuesday night at D-Wall. And when I came back into the program this last time, I had I went to the treatment center in 87. So now it's 95. With a few runs in between of it, how back and forth, because I didn't get it the first or the second or the third or the fourth time. And so I had a 3rd edition, and everybody was reading out of the 5th. And my 3rd edition looked as brand new as the 5th edition. It still had the blue cover on it and everything, and the pages were snow white. But I got busy. I carried my basic text everywhere I went. I highlighted it. I wore it out. Because, see, even with a job, I came in here broke. I couldn't go out for coffee after, because of the wreckage. I couldn't go out for coffee or nothing like that. But I kept coming back. I kept getting them slip signs. See, it don't make no difference how we get here. It's what we're going to do once we get here. Because I was finally beat down to the point where I was willing to go to any length. As far as not using the dope, but, using that credit card, using those women, I continue to practice those behaviors, but even those got better over time, but I remember, like I said, I had 25 years with the company, and they said, well, here's the deal, you're on double secret probation, and you got to stay clean for 5 years. When I be at 30 years service, I'm eligible for the retirement. And every Monday, I bring my slips in. Sometimes I'd have 3 or 4 sheets. Because I started going to meetings. I got a sponsor. And I started working on me. Even though I ain't worked that many steps, I just continue to keep coming and not picking up the dough. And 4 years clean. One morning I was in personnel turning in my slips. I Xerox them. So, I got a copy, they got a copy. And personnel manager was, the head of personnel was, he was in there doing something. And I said, hey, I still need to bring these papers in here. He said, hell, you could have stopped that long time ago. Basically, all they wanted me to do was come to work. All they wanted me to do is become that productive employee again. Because I had been there 25 years when all this came down, and when I worked, I was a good worker. I had learned how to run all these machines. All they wanted me to do is be there when I was supposed on my shift. I remember working all this overtime and never having no money. I remember my vehicle sitting a week because I had spent all the money. I don't know how I could fill it up on Friday night and on Saturday morning not have a lick of gas. I said, did I ride that much chasing? And I remember my van sitting out there in front of the house. I'm telling everybody, I got to put it in the shop, but I'm waiting on payday. Another one of them little secrets. When in all reality, it was out of gas. it was out of gas. You know, and it was easy to keep them little sick secrets, you know. But see, as I came around and stayed around, you know, them little secrets, you know, didn't sit well with me no more. Because, you know, we ask that we get a God of our own understanding. Well, it's the same God I've always had. I just have a personal relationship with him today, you know. And things are just much more clear, you know, and I'm glad that this convention is here. It talks about the broader base, the higher point of freedom. You know, and when I was asked to do this, I said, okay, you know, now it's time to free myself to get to the exact nature, you know, and to let you know that I still have a problem with this gold. I like gold jewelry. And last weekend I was in Toledo, and Mr. Bill had these rings. And I was going to trade one in, right? I just didn't have the one I wanted to trade in with me. I didn't wear it that weekend. See, God was doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. And this weekend I'm not trading in nothing, because I hadn't had a chance to think about that. You know what I'm saying? Because, see, I am retired now. You know, I have been blessed to be retired from my job, you know. And I do not have the money I had when I was working. And I have to recognize that I just can't just do what I used to do. You know. Yeah, I can get it. Put it on the credit card. You know, I had problems with credit card and active addiction, and around here with 2-3 years clean, I had a problem with credit cards. Clean. You know, I have to realize that the instant gratification is, you know, leads to problems. You know, that the bill's still gonna come due. You know. And so far I have chosen not to work. So that means, you know, the money being what it is, I mean, I had to live off my savings to, you know, to maintain the level that I've been maintaining. Which means either we're going to have to cut back or we have to go get a part-time job. You know what I'm saying? And then I can't walk around looking like I got it going on when I know that the piper is going to have to be paid, you know. And see, I have no problem today telling you that, you know, even with coming up on my clean date is 3/3/95. The Monday I have 8 years clean. But even with 8 years clean, let me put that 7 years, 11 months, and 362 days, because it's just for the day. You know, I know that even now I still have problems, you know, with living life on life terms, because I want to look good, sound good, you know, present this facade that I really got it going on, you know, when I know that, you know, I have to start doing things different. That I can't continue to live like, you know, I'm still making that same money I did when I was working. And I look in the ads, the classifieds every day, you know, and I passed on some jobs that I know I could do. Because, you know, I'm really enjoying not going to work. But I know that something's going to have to change, and it's not going to be long. You know, that, yeah, it's good to be retired. You know, I'm truly blessed that I have been able to reach this stage, you know. And the truth of the matter is, I probably would have still been working, except that it don't look like the company going to make it. So I had to bail out. Because if I don't bail out now, I won't get no money. You know, and that's why I left. And it's still not looking good out there, but you know, I'm just truly blessed to be able to do what I'm doing. You know, you know, I'm really glad that I was asked to share today. You know, because you know, I've shared this in some meetings. You know what I'm saying? And you know, I don't know if they heard what I was saying. I hope they got a message from what I was saying, because I know that in, you know, life and life terms mean, you know, we go through things. You know, but if I share them, you know, somebody come up to me and say, well, you know, I went through this and this is how I got through it. You know, I might have to call one of them. You know, they always advertise on TV about, yeah, we can consolidate your bills or file bankruptcy. But see, it's not that I'm not paying my bills. I'm paying my bills. I'm not behind on anything. You know what I'm saying? But see, the addict in me, we want to say, well, I can file bankruptcy. I ain't got to pay them. You know what I'm saying? Because I've known people who filed. I got a partner, he ain't in recovery. You know, he filed bankruptcy several times. He's living in a brand new house. You know what I'm saying? And I said, maybe I can do that. But see, you know, he don't have a program. I do. You know, and I don't want to I can't do what everybody else do. You know, I've gained a conscience. You know, I got some values. You know what I'm saying? And I can't do, you know, what the things I used to do. And it's only through this program of Narcotics Anonymous that this is possible. You know, and you know, it talks about, you know, what our message is. Our message is an addict, any addict, stop using, lose the desire, and find a new way to live. You know, we have, you know, one promise, but many gifts. You know, and if all I ever got out of this program is not picking up the dope anymore, that's truly a real gift. But what I have also gotten out of this program is that I can change. And now I have to continue to act out. You know, religion talks about those non-existent virtues. You know, today I got some, you know, values. I got a value system, you know. And I'm continuing to work on me, and I'm continuing to grow spiritually. And as I continue to grow spiritually and continue to mature, because I came in here, you know, a very immature person, you know, like my boy Cedric tells you, I'm a grown ass man, but I'm still a little boy inside. You know what I'm saying? Because I haven't, you know, I haven't chosen to grow up. You know, I've never been married. I don't have any children, so that gives me a great freedom to really act out in areas. You know, but guess what? You know, it's a lonely existence. You know what I'm saying? And I'm tired of being the same old person, being by myself, and, you know, and being lonely and depressed in recovery. You know, there's a better way. But see, the religion says we must become vulnerable. We have to open ourselves up in order to get the joys of recovery. And that's what I'm going to have to do, is open myself up, become vulnerable, you know, let somebody really know who I am, and get free, totally free, no secrets, you know. Fair exchange, no robbery. Thanks for allowing me to share.
Thanks for sharing. Thanks, Charles. Our next speaker is Gary H. from Fort Wayne. Right here.
I like that. I'm Gary, I'm an addict.
Gary.
All you people out there.
That's right.
We out here with you.
Yeah. I guess for me, I'm not gonna lie, I'm always nervous regardless of how many people's in the room with me, you know. And it's funny, it's like every time we have a convention here, they give me a topic that hits right at home, you know. And this one's sick as your secrets. For me, I mean, and I've been around here a few 24 hours, and I went through a lot of things in recovery. And, you know, just like the addict before me, you know, and you think about in the early days, it was all about the drugs and the things that you did to get the drugs. And then as you continually to stay around and continually work a program, then you start finding out it's not about the drug anymore, and then it's like it's about the disease of addiction. Because I can remember early on in recovery, it was like all I focused on was using and what the using did in my life and how it caused my life to be so chaotic and stuff, you know. And then I started really, you know, picking up the basic text, and because I'd have been in and out of rooms. I used to call myself a chronic relapser, you know, because I'd stay around 30 days and then I'd go out and use and you know, and I'd be like, well, you know, that's just what I wanted to do, you know. But I wouldn't talk about the pains and the things that I was going through at that time. And it's like, you know, in order to recover, you got to get honest and got to be able to talk about the things that goes on in your life. And that's what I started doing. But then when I started reading and started understanding about the disease of addiction, my life took a whole different turn. You know, it's like, okay, we know it ain't about the drugs, it's all about the behaviors, the way I think, those committee meetings I have in my head, you know, and figure out how I'm going to do my next thing. And I've said over the years, the longer I stay clean, the harder it is for me. You know, because what I found out, the longer I stay clean, the real me start coming out. You know, the person that I was as a child. And in the process of that, what happens is all the hurts and all the things that happened to me started coming back into my life, and I started thinking about them. Then I have to learn how to deal with it, you know. And I think so far I have did a good job of dealing with my past. But right now, it's like what I really have to look at now is how I'm living in recovery now. You know what I mean? I mean, I got some years clean, y'all. I've been, you know, like Charlie, this month is I'll be celebrating. You know, I don't like to brag on the time, but sometimes it's good to let people know how much time you got, so when you start telling them about things that happen, they can realize, well, maybe I'll go through that. But in like 3 or 4 days, I'll have 12 years clean, you know. And I've been through a lot in these 12 years, and it seems like, man, the longer I stay clean, a lot come up. You know, I mean, I've had to deal with a lot, and then, you know, a lot of things is like what I consider secrets, you know, not being able to love myself the way I should, you know, being able to be all right on a daily basis, you know, and be able to say this is going to be a good day. It has taken a long time for me to get to that point, you know, and I got married in recovery, and with about 3 or 4 years clean, I got married to another addict. Y'all can imagine what that's like, being married to another addict. And then on top of that, she's an alcohol and drug counselor. So you can imagine how that is. But understand. But anyway, you know, and she makes me look at a lot of things, because anytime my behaviors come out, she right on me about them, you know, and I get mad because I don't want you pointing out some of the things that I do, even though I know they're true, you know. And secrets for me, man, has really killed me at times, you know, and caused me a lot of pain, you know, because I got kids. I got four of my own kids. And you know, when you say you got 4 kids, okay, the first thing people think is that, okay, he got 4 kids by his ex-wife. Now I got 2 kids by my ex-wife, and I got 2 kids from my mistress, and they all, split up, and I don't tell a lot of people that. That's a real secret that I have kept for a long time. But now when people ask me about it, I just be honest about it, because that's something that that's a part of my life that I have to deal with on a regular basis. Because simple fact that those kids come in my life now, and they I talk about them because things are getting good at times, and it's like I don't have anything to be ashamed about, because at that time when I was doing the things that I was doing, I felt that those were the things that I needed to be doing. Today I know that was totally wrong what I did, and I know I have made amends to my ex-wife for being not the husband that I should have been, and to make amends for myself, I'm trying to be the husband that I should have been back then, and being clean has helped me a lot with that situation, and I've just learned how to deal with that, and to me that's a major secret, a major secret to tell that, I used to tell people she married and I'm just in it, and I was okay with it. Now I look at it, man, that was some real stupid stuff you would even think and say to anybody, and in this marriage today, I'm trying to be a better husband, I'm trying to be a better father, and then the funny part about it all, when I look at it and I research it and I look at it, I wasn't the best father or husband that I could have been in the past, And the end result of all of that is that now I got to deal with that stuff now, trying to get respect from my kids, trying to get them to understand that, back then that's the life that I live, and I didn't know any better, or I didn't want to know any better, or how to be a better man, a better father and stuff. And I have tried to deal with those issues, and those are major issues with me today, and I have to be honest about that, I guess today was a good time to free myself from some of the pain and some of the confusions about all that, and not be afraid to let people know, and I was thinking, I'm doing this early workshop, maybe won't be that many people there, and I can maybe just even slide on up out of here, and then I'm like, regardless of how many people here, that's not the point. There's somebody here that want to hear, or may get something out of what I got to say, and I don't know, I have kept a lot of secrets, but then I look at that situation with my kids and say right into today, I don't have a great relationship with all of them. And I have came to a point that regardless of what I do and what I try to do to build that relationship, it just ain't working. Because see, now, they don't know it, but they're addicts too. But just don't know how to seek recovery. So I have to deal with that, and I've come to a point where I can't allow them to keep making me sick, but I can still be in their lives, you know what I mean? Let them know that I'm there for them and stuff, and that's what I have did, created some type of boundaries where we can communicate with one another and stuff, and that's good, But I don't know. I think one of the major secrets or things I try to keep quiet are some of the things that I do that I practice in my recovery now that are negative, and I think is shopping. I replaced the shopping with drug instead of drugs. Now I do the shopping thing, And see, some of the stories I can tell it just be wild, because it ain't nothing that I really need. I'm the type of person that I can go to the store. I can't just buy one. Just like the drugs, you just can't buy one. Everything I buy 2 of or 3 of. Then the funny part now is I work in a clothing store. And I get a discount. So you can imagine what's happening. But, and that's one of my major things. But, I've learned all the things that I do in recovery, I've learned that I got to share it with somebody. Now, if I don't go to a meeting to share it with somebody, I'm going to share it with a recovering addict or somebody close to me. Because I figure if you get the secret off you, it's no longer a secret. You can't stay sick if you told somebody about it. If they say, "Oh, how you doing with that situation?" But as long as I keep it within, and that committee working with it, I'm gonna stay sick. I'm gonna walk around depressed, whatever the emotion that I want to feel at that time is what's gonna be happening at that moment and stuff. So and I know today I look at it real tough about the shopping deal, man. I mean, 'cause I've did some stuff like I be in Nap looking around the mall and see something and say, no, I ain't gonna get it. And come back to Fort Wayne. I don't know if y'all familiar with the distance between Fort Wayne and Indianapolis. But I went to work, called the wife, like, look, I'm gonna be in Nap for a few minutes, and as soon as I get off work, that's where I'm going. And I did that. And on the whole ride, I don't see nothing wrong with it. But once I get there and get done doing my thing and involve what I want, I know there's something wrong with that. I mean, that's that disease kicking in, I done obsessed on it, and then she be saying, I don't know why you be doing the most dope fiend moves. You could have bought that while you was there, And I'm like, well, I just, it's just how I am, But I know I need to correct that. I know I need to learn to say, okay, if I'm going to buy it, I'm going to get it. Instead of doing, because I do it all the time, man. My in-laws live in Detroit. And what I find myself doing, my in-laws are all women. Ain't nobody married. It's just women with women, And I go up there and I sit around when I be like, man, I'm getting bored. And finally, somebody showed me where the spots was. I dropped the wife off. I'm gone all day. Bag full, trunk full of stuff. And then, this is how I know it's that disease kicking in. Because when I get done, I used to smoke. Had to get me a smoke in and be like, I go through the ritual I'd be sweating, and I don't know if y'all familiar with the Detroit area. I'm going all over the surrounding areas, hitting all the spots. If this place ain't got what I want, I'm going to the other spot. You know how we do it with the drugs? We hunt it down. That's how I do it. I do it and be happy. But then be sick also because I said, that was really sick. To think about it, did you really need the shoes? Did you really need the suit? I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, do you really need all this stuff? And I'm like, not really, but I wanted it, And I don't care about the consequences when I get them. It's like, okay, I got it, and then sit in the closet for 2-3 months. Stuff I ain't even wore. And then all of a sudden she said, well, won't you wear that you ain't never wore, And it's like, damn, that is true, I got that, and that just, when I look at it now, it's just like, man, that's real sick. Like right now, I'm going through the thing of saying, okay, I work in this clothing store. They throw all these deals out, and it's like, it really ain't the type of clothes that I wear, really. I really don't wear a lot of jeans, and I don't wear a lot of gym shoes. I done found myself a pair of jeans. This I justify it. If the jeans are $1.79, I might well get them. So I buy 4 pair. I give my kids a couple of pair, and I keep a pair. Everything I do, I gotta get a pair. And I'm thinking, and I got bags of clothes in the closet. I got clothes I'm supposed to send to one of my sons I ain't sent, and I'm like, shit, I ought to keep this for myself. Then I'm like, you ain't gonna even wear it. It's just gonna sit there. So I'm going through that transition of really saying, okay, you need to really step back and look at this situation. Really look at what's going on. It is not with somebody saying it to me. It's just me working with me saying, okay, it's something that you need to look at, something that you need to work out and get past. And it's like, okay, so I'm just tearing, I'm just going to not use my car. I'm not going to take no cash to it, And now that I think about it, I'm like, man, that's just wild. But I like to dress, and then one of the things that I do it for is to make me feel good. You know what I mean? Sometimes I have learned that sometimes I just can't get that good feeling just on being who I am. If I go somewhere and somebody compliment me, that makes me, raise up a little bit. But I can be the same person regardless of what I got on, And I know that, And I know that the clothes don't make the person. And then I also figured out that it don't matter what you put on or buy or whatever you do to feel that instant gratification, it don't take it away. You know, it's still there when you get done. You know, you still got to deal with you, you know, and I'm learning that, you know, and I've learned that I got to share all that with somebody to help me get past these things. You know, I have to deal with the fact that, you know, my wife, she's a drug and alcohol counselor. She's working to get her bachelor's, and then she wants to get her master's. You know, I'm walking around with a GED, you know, just as happy as a lark working my job, you know. And you know, and at times, I be envious. She talking, well, I'm going to the seminar, blah, 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 and I'm doing this, and she come in the house talking about her, you know, what she did at work and blah, blah, and I'm like, I ain't really trying to hear it. You know, I'm trying to watch this TV, you know. But the actuality, I should be listening, you know. And, you know, then the thing is, I'm proud of what she's doing and what she has achieved, you know. But then the part of me that's feeling inadequate plays a role, and then I don't want to be happy for her. You know, I want her to bring all her stuff, you know, and treat me a certain way. She be like, I ain't got time for that, Gary. You know, you acting sick. You know, you need to pick yourself up out of this and get to moving and doing something. That's one of the reasons why I got involved in the convention. I was like, I go through periods where I don't, you know, I just sit around and I stay low key on things. You know, I just, you know, do the basic, go to work, come home, do whatever I need to do there. And then I just chill. And I was like, I need to get involved in something. I need to do something that's worthwhile. And, you know, I'm involved in some other activities. I mentor a little young cat that, you know, I see going down the wrong road. And it's like, you know, that has gave me some stability and made me feel good, even though he ain't acting right, you know how they do. But I deal with that. But you know, then when I got involved with this convention, I was like, okay, I'll get involved with the convention. I'll go for merchandise chair, and you know, I'll do this, and that'll get me motivated to do some other things. And you know, I got into it. I'm like, oh man, why did I do this? Why I get involved? Because you know how we do on these convention committees. You know, we got to argue and fuss, and you know, I'm cussing people out. You know, I'm on the real. I'm just cussing and everything else. But I'm glad that I got involved. Then I get involved in this, and then that, all of a sudden I'm working my full-time job. I'm messing around the mall doing my sickness and get hired in the store. So now I got the job, the convention committee, the little mentoring thing, and then I'm trying to be there for my kids and my grandkids and my wife. Now my plate done got full. You know, we walking through the door and saying hi, she going one way, I'm going the other way. You know, and then I'm saying, you know, that ain't all that bad, you know, because I'm being productive. Finally, I'm finding my niche in things, you know, and I think sometimes maybe I should go back to school and try to improve on my education and stuff. And it's like, that would be something good. But then the honesty in me, I ain't ready for that, you know. But then I also say I need to support my wife in her endeavors and be proud that she's doing what she's doing and just, you know, go with the flow. Because I told her, as soon as you get that master, I'm going to quit work. And, you know, and you can take care of me and stuff and get your business running and stuff. And, you know, she was looking at me like I'm crazy. But, and that's cool, you know, that's all right, because I know that I'm going to always work, because I'm that type of person, you know. And that, you know, things like that is what I have to work on today. Being clean as long as I've been, it's like every day is a challenge, you know, because it's not about the drug anymore for me. It's about, you know, living life on life terms, like the other addicts say, man. I didn't realize once you got clean from the drug and stuff, living on life terms would be so, you know, hectic at times, you know, dealing with kids, dealing with other people, dealing with people outside the fellowship, you know, just dealing with me, you know, just dealing with the sick things that I do. And even today, sometimes I do a little dirt, you know. And I ain't really told nobody that. I do a little dirt every now and then. I don't cheat on my wife or nothing like that, but, you know, I get my little hustle on, pay for a pair of shoes or something like that, you know. But, and that's one of the things that I'm proud of, that I've been in this marriage almost 9 years and have never cheated. You know, I was married for 13 years and had about 26, 60, 70, 80 girls, you know, and a couple of kids on the outside, you know. And you know, that's one thing that I have diligently worked on. You know, not that I don't see things that look good, but see, the reality of it is I know it ain't good for me, you know. So I don't have to go there. You know, I know that I got something good at home and we building something good, and I don't need to mess that up. Years ago, I couldn't do that. I'd have had to tap that, you know. Just like at this convention, man, you see the different women walking around here, and, you know, you see the newcomers, and they be like, You know, they give you a little wink, and I'll be like, look, I ain't busting a grape around here. My wife right over there. You know, that I have to be honest like that, you know. And that's telling on myself. You know, I could play it off like, I'm going to see what's happening. Ain't going to work. I'll bust myself, you know. And, you know, that's something the sick stuff that I think, you know, and that I've learned not to go there anymore. I've learned so much from this program over the years that it's, you know, it has made my life easier, you know. And secrets do not make your life easier. All it does is make it harder, you know. I mean, I have a partner that's in recovery. He's a barber. I go up to the barber shop on Saturday sometime when I get time, and we'll sit there well after hours telling everything. You know, I tell him everything that's going on with me. He tell me what's going on, and we be like, okay, we ain't gonna do this, we ain't gonna do that, you know. But for years, you know, it was like, I didn't believe that I had secrets, you know. I didn't believe that people would go through some of the same things that I go through. And then I come to Narcotics Anonymous and I find out people go through the same things I go. There's people at this convention right now got a problem with shopping, you know. And then you look at a dude, and say, how can a dude have a problem with shopping? You know what I mean? You know? I mean, y'all can relate to that, you know? I mean, you would think that, and my wife is saying, you shop like a woman. Well, whatever. I'm finna get my shop on, you know. But, I mean, you know, I can't keep that no secret. 'Cause right now, it's kind of, you know, we want to buy a house and stuff, and it's like, you can't buy no house, you know, going shopping all the time. You know, then I'm sitting here trying to get this plan. Like I said, after the convention over, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to work out this budget, and we're going to do this, and, you know, I ain't buying no more of this. I'm going to take some things back, you know. I'm going to work on this part of my life. You know, I'm going to work on the part of me and the shopping thing, you know, because, see, the end result of that's going to bring me some profits. You know, it's going to bring some good in, you know, because I've already dealt with the problems with my kids, you know. Couple of my kids, we just ain't going to be the best of friends, you know. We're going to be just what it is. I'm going to be daddy and they going to be son or daughter or whatever. And, you know, and, you know, I hate it that we have a relationship like that, but there's no more I can do unless they come and meet me halfway. You know, if they don't meet me halfway, what can I do? You know, and I'm not compromising my position just for them to treat me better. You know what I mean? So I done dealt with it. I'm okay with it. I can walk away from that. My big issue now is just keeping money in my pocket and not feeling like I got to run to the mall every time I think I need something. Like yesterday, I left work and, you know, I had all this stuff to do here at the convention as far as merchandise. I still done ran out to the mall for a quick second, you know, and finna justify why I should buy these couple of shirts that I didn't need, you know. And I was like, nah. And then I look at it, that's a good thing. I walked out the mall with no bags. You know what I mean? You know, I ain't saying that the mind went click and rolling all night long. Then my wife like, well, you want me to do this for you? I was like, nah, I got something else to do that. I said, yeah, you can help me with this. And just relieve that pressure of me wanting to buy stuff, you know. And like today, you know, I got some things to do. I got to leave for a little bit and take care of some things. And I, you know, I'm coming right back. I ain't going, you know, thinking I need anything. I don't need nothing. I don't need nothing but some recovery, you know, bottom line. I don't need no shirts. I don't need no shoes. I don't need nothing. You know, ain't nothing I need but, you know, just to love myself, to learn, to continually on a regular basis learn to love myself like I should. You know, I always say, well, if I buy these shoes, that's loving me, you know. But having that personal relationship with me is more important than a pair of alligator shoes or a double-breasted suit or whatever it is. You know, they was like, well, you're going to be in the fashion show. And I'm like, I really don't have the time, you know, because it's just me and the merchandise and my wife, she helping me. And I have to do that on, you know, the whole time of the convention. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay being a part of this convention, you know. I just hate that I had to do a workshop so early on, because I always think, well, give me a little time to think about how this topic plays a part in my life. And a few years ago when I got clean, this time I've been coming around since '88, and I haven't been able to successfully stay clean till 1991. And 1990 I got shot, and I lost part of my hand, and it was like, for years I used that as an excuse for anything that was going on in my life. It was like, I didn't realize that I was going through a grieving process, grieving the loss of part of my hand. And it was like, okay, eventually you got to learn how to deal with that, and what I've done over the years, and this is what started. I went to a meeting one day, and the topic of grieving came up. And I was like, people was talking about grieving the loss of loved ones and stuff like that. And I'm like, and I'm thinking at the meeting saying, well, I ain't lost nobody. But I said, I'm really going through a thing about this hand thing. And I just started sharing about how it made me feel, how getting up in the morning, going to the bathroom and getting in the mirror to shave or wash or whatever, and then see part of your hand gone. Or go to a jewelry store or whatever and see a ring, but no, you can't get it because you ain't got enough fingers, because you already got 5 rings on this finger and stuff, so why, you know what I mean? And then even justify and say, well, I'll just put it on this finger. And, that look ugly as hell. I mean, I want to keep the focus off of it, so why would I do something like that, and like I was sharing, I said, I've grieved it a long time, and now I get up in the morning and I'm okay with it. I have people now that I've been around, worked with for 10, 12 years, have never noticed that I had part of my hand missing. And it would be amazing to me that they didn't, because I'm not hiding it. But then I say, if I go on living life normal as I should, it's not a problem. You know what I mean? It's only a problem when I make it a problem. And today I don't use it as an excuse to be sick or be sad or something. That was just something that happened in addiction and active addiction, and something that I've had to learn how to live with. We all get scarred in active addiction by some of the things that we do, and that was one of my things, One of the other things that, and I haven't really shared a lot about this, I was in a relationship since I've been in recovery with another female. And I mean, we went out using together, beat each other up. We did everything together. And then I found over the years that I really didn't like that person. It was all about the drugs and the exciting things that we did while we was using, And the thing was, I was building up a real resentment towards it, because I was hearing things once I got clean about this, that, and that, and I was like, nah, how's she gonna play me like that? And the reality of it doesn't really matter now. I see her now and I'm looking at her like, damn, you really, messed up, and I'm like, is that what my life would have been like if I would have stayed with her, So now that resentment has came to be some of, some being grateful that I was able to recover and stay in recovery, and was able to remove myself from that relationship. Because at one point I was afraid to move away from that relationship. I was afraid that if I didn't stay in a relationship, I would never be in a relationship. And that was because I thought so less of myself, But as now it's like, I'm good enough for any female. Else I wouldn't be with my wife, And I'm grateful that I have come to that realization that I am a good man. I just, got some things that I have to work on a regular basis. And, keeping secrets don't help me at all. I was sharing with her the other night, my wife the other night, about some things that was going on, and she was like, really? Because, I've been sick last week I was sick all week, and it's like when I get sick, I get real vulnerable. And then my insecurities pop in, because, see, when I'm sick, she ain't trying to help me at all. She study going to work, and I ain't trying to catch you, she just moving on, and I'm like, damn, you supposed to be here getting my juice and cooking me soup and shit, and you just rolling on, And I'm like, I get insecure and I get to thinking crazy, and I was saying, you know, my partner called me and we was talking, and then I tried to call, your line was busy. I said, why he call her? Now I'm thinking, now that was some real sick thinking. You know, I said, now, he just called to see how I was doing because he knew I was sick. You know, I'm like, how do you get to that point in your life to think like that? But then I realized anytime I get sick and I ain't getting cared for like a little baby, you know, it all comes in. I said, I'm not insecure. It's just in times like this when you don't show me no love. But then I understand you still got to go on and do what you got to do in order for, you know, for you to do your thing. And it's like, okay, I can get with that. But in the midst of being sick, I can't see it. You know, I can't feel that the things are going. But I am grateful that I have learned how to deal with Gary. You know what I mean? I've learned how to look at some of the things that I do and how I think, you know, and that has helped me a lot, you know. I'm glad that they asked me to share today. I just wish it was like 200 people out there so I could, you know, flex my muscles and stuff. But I appreciate the people that, you know, sat here and listen. And, you know, it's amazing how you come to a convention. I met this young lady looking for the hospitality room, then find out she chairing the workshop. Dude was helping the tape man, you know, and I'm like, but see, you meet new people, you know, and it's like, okay, they find out a little bit about you. They be walking around, that man right there, he just off the chain. You know, but I'm just grateful that, you know, that I stuck with it. You know, I was ready to say, okay, we ain't got to do it because ain't nobody in there, you know, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many people in the meeting as long as you have a meeting. And that's, you know, and I'm glad that I know that. And, you know, today I definitely work on not keeping any secrets. Thanks for letting me share.